In 1995, Michael Jordan, after a season and a half of playing baseball, made an announcement that shook up the NBA. He was back, and the NBA sure as hell was not ready. Whilst he didn't make it to the finals coming in halfway through the season with a full off season of training, the NBA were not ready at all. 72-10 NBA champions, the Chicago Bulls. My name's LQ, and let's talk about it. It's been a long time since we've done it. Let's talk about it. I mean, I don't know why I'm wearing a LeBron top when I'm talking about Michael Jordan, but I wanted to come in and talk about a team that was on my mind. When we talk about one of the best teams of all time, we talk about the Chicago Bulls. And for me, this is the greatest team of all time. Why not talk about the Chicago Bulls? I could have made a documentary on MJ, but I'm going to do that on Kobe.
Wait a minute.
So let's go straight into the 96 Chicago Bulls. So first and foremost, who are the players on that team? First, obviously, you have Michael Jeffrey Jordan. The GOAT, his Ernest, Jumpman, whatever you want to call him, you know who he is. The MVP of that league, the All-Star Game MVP, the Finals MVP. The most valuable player, Michael Jordan, leading that team to another championship. Next you have Scottie Pippen, the greatest two-man of all time. Whether you want to call him Batman or Robin, he is the greatest second man of all time. Winning his fourth championship, Scottie Pippen, all-defensive team, finished second in DPOY that season. They have a good front two, first and foremost. And then third, finally, you have Dennis the Menace, the demolition man, the leader of rebounds. You have Dennis Rodman, who got traded to that team from the San Antonio Spurs. People weren't sure what they were getting from Dennis Rodman week in and week out. You could see he was a talented player. You could see he was a defensive monster, but you weren't sure whether he'd passed his peak, whether it was the same Dennis Rodman from the Detroit Pistons, the bad boy Pistons days. And then the last of the four Hall of Fame players in that team is Tony Kukoc, one of the greatest six men of all time, six men of the year that year as well. So that's the Hall of Famers. Who else is a part of the team? You have Steve Kerr, the most efficient three-point shooter of all time. Although it wasn't a three-point shooting era, he hit some important shots in that 95-96 year. And you have the coach, winning coach of the year. You have Phil Jackson, one of the greatest coaches of all time, arguably the greatest coach of all time. You know, it's between him and Greg Popovich. So the personnel on that team were so good. You have numerous awards on that team. Like we said, Michael Jordan was the most valuable player, All-Star Game MVP, the Finals MVP, the scoring champion that season as well. Scottie Pippen might not have won Defensive Player of the Year, but he was All-NBA first team alongside Michael Jordan. And he finished second in that DPOY race. You have people like Tony Kukoc winning the Sixth Man of the Year. You have Coach of the Year in Phil Jackson. You have Executive of the Year in Jerry Krause, bringing in that Dennis Rodman, that aggressiveness into that team. But next, the most important thing, obviously, is winning. When it comes down to it, the Chicago Bulls won 72 games in the regular season. Currently, that makes them the second most winningest team in NBA history, but at the time, they had the most wins for a team in regular season history. 72 wins was unheard of at that time. Now, a lot of people can say, are they the best team of all time, when the record was beaten by the Golden State Warriors, who had a record of 73-9. But if you take into account the off-season, the Chicago Bulls were 87-13. And that, if you include postseason and regular season, is the best record of all time. The Golden State Warriors didn't win a championship at the end of their season, and that ultimately is the most important thing. Chicago Bulls even had a t-shirt that said 72-10 don't mean a thing without a ring. Tells you everything you need to know about the mentality of that team. So they are ultimately the most winningest team in history. You know, the last thing that made this team so good was their ability to play offense and defense at the same time. The Chicago Bulls had the scoring champion and also the person who finished second in Defensive Player of the Year in the same team. They are the last team in NBA history, from this point no one has done it, to have three players in the all-defensive first team. It's not normal to have three players in the all-defensive first team. It hasn't been done since this 96 team. They had Dennis Rodman, Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, all in the same all-defensive first team. They're the only team in NBA history to lead the league in offensive rating and defensive rating. They have the third highest points differential in NBA history, only finishing third to some 70s teams that used to dominate back in their era. The Chicago Bulls team is just different. This team here, I'm not sure it will be topped in the future as well. A lot of people have this misconstrued idea that this team is a super team. Just because they had good players doesn't make them a super team. Michael Jordan was drafted. Scottie Pippen was drafted. Dennis Rodman was an unwanted player in the NBA at the time, and the rest of them were just pieces aside. Isn't the same as super teams that come together, and they even drafted Tony Kukoc as well. This is just amazing executive work from Jerry Krause. This team is built exactly to perfection, and anybody that tells you they wouldn't be able to hang in this era needs to get their head checked. The 95-96 Chicago Bulls team is one of the greatest teams of all time, and for me, it might just be the best. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in a bit. Boom.